the pleasure of worshiping with her already know about her. How good and how pleasant it is for us to join together with the words of Hine Matov.
Hine Matov, Umanayim Sheverakim Am Yachad. Hine Matov, Umanayim Sheverakim Am Yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how good it is, how sweet it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine Matov, Umanayim Sheverakim Am Yachad. Hine Matov, Umanayim Sheverakim Am Yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine Matov, Umanayim Sheverakim Am Yachad. Hine Matov, Umanayim Sheverakim Am Yachad.
We take a moment to welcome Shabbat. After the clouds and rain, we seek the sun. After a sea of masks, we seek the faces of those we love. After concentration on work and responsibility, we seek the freedom to meditate, to listen to our inward selves. We long to open our eyes to the hidden beauties and infinite possibilities of the world before us. We yearn to break open the gates of the reservoirs of goodness and kindness in ourselves and in others. We reach toward that one holy moment, better known as Shabbat. As we join together to light the Shabbat candles on page 120, if there is something that brought you light and joy this week, please share that with us in the chat box so that we can celebrate along with you. Page 120.
Maybe you go more chat. Everyone's just saying Shabbat Shalom.
We continue with the chanting of the blessing on page 120. Cantor At.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
So let's see, we have some greetings from a number of people, and I'm excited to tell you all that Daniel and Paula Kaplan's granddaughter learned to ride a two-wheeler. That certainly brought joy to her family, I am sure. And greetings from Ed Lerner in Maryland and Ari in Plainfield, New Jersey. We're so thrilled to have you here with us tonight. As we continue to welcome Shabbat with the words of Lecha Dodi, I continue to invite you to let us know in the chat box where you are joining us from, or take a moment and send a Shabbat Shalom text to a friend or loved one who maybe you have not spoken to this week. Lecha Dodi begins on page 138. We will sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And at verse number 9, if you are able, please rise and face the door in your home.
Shamor v'zachor b'ribur echad ishbiyanu el hayuchad Adonai echad u'shmo echad l'shemo tiferet Likrat Shabbat Lechu v'nelcha Ki mekor Abracha Merosh mikedem Nesucha Sof ma'aseh במחשבה תפילה לה 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 לך דודי לה 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 לקראת חלב לה 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 פני שבת נקבלה Ittoreri, and give ore, Uri, Shir Daberi, Kevod Adonai, Alayich Nikava. La 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 kadudi la 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 kratala la 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 bnei Shabbat bnei Shabbat nekavela boi v'shalom ateret bala Egam b'sefa Zola Tov emunei Am segula U'ichala La 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 b'nei Shabbat b'nei Shabbat nekabe la 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 lekadudi la 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 lekadala la 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 b'nei Shabbat b'nei Shabbat nekabela
We have many Shabbat greetings from a lot of those who are joining us, and the Rosners and the Cohens celebrate the graduation of their granddaughter, Maddie Cohen, from Westfield High School. Mazel tov on that. And we have Shabbat wishes from Annette Raddick. And Jen White sends Shabbat wishes from the Poconos, and Beth Tischler from Massachusetts, and Sharon Zaidney from Atlanta, Georgia. Wow, so from near and far. And we have Carol Cohen in Westfield, Jackie Gruscott in Bridgewater, and Harriet Schulman welcomed a new niece, Hannah Shaw. And Terry Klass wishes us a Shabbat Shalom, as does Pearl Silva. And Dina Ox is celebrating her grandson's 13th birthday. And Justin, Carol Cohen's granddaughter, Lexi Cohen, graduated from Milburn High School. So Shabbat Shalom to everyone and Mazel Tov to everyone. We're happy to celebrate with you, and we're so glad you're here. We continue with Chatzi Kaddish on page 144.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויאמר דברך יורתי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון, ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לעולמי עלמיה, יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודשו בריחו לילה, מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירן בעלמא, ויאמרו Amen.
We continue with the Baruch Hu, our call to worship on page 146. Please rise if you are able. We continue in Hebrew on page 148. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, v'chokhma poteach she'erim, uvitvuna mishene itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umsader et hakochavim, v'mishmarotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai tzavaot shemo. El chai v'kayam, tamid yomloch alenu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gave to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Page 152. We continue with the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Ha'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Ha'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
You may be seated. We continue on page 154 with the Ve'ahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Our worship continues on page 158 with our Song of Freedom, Mi Chamocha.
So I will introduce this one by saying this is one of my favorites of the contemporary assortment, and it's by Josh Nelson. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh norati lot b'sei Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha neder b'kodesh norati lot b'sei Miriam, זה עלינו, אנו ואמרו.
Thank you, Cantor Ott, for introducing that tune. It was really beautiful. Our worship continues on page 162 with Vishamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Prayer happens in relationship. We ask God to create the possibility of connection, then pledge that we will respond to the opening of God's facilities, meeting God in relationship, then reciprocity, then words. There is no speech without two participants. There is no relationship without another. And there's no prayer unless we stand in our own readiness before the God, before the One. I invite you to rise for the Amidah, page 164.
Adonai sefata tiftach ufi agidi latecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Bekonei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, נחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ברופאי חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בך יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
As we continue with our silent prayer, I invite you to use the words of your hearts, the words of our Siddur, and I also ask you to reflect on a question that I pose to you now. And that question is, what is inspired leadership? I'll write the question in the chat box, and if you are done praying or if you just want to think about that question, I invite you to reflect on it and share your answer in the chat box during this time. We continue our silent prayer. We finish the words, and then we will have Cantor Ott join us by singing these words.
Shalom b'roma, uyaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom b'roma, uyaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom b'roma, uyaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'yakol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'yakol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'yakol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu.
At this time in our service, our prayers turn to those who are ill, who need the extra healing of mind, body, or spirit. May God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob, Rachel, and Leah, grant all a refuah shlema, a thorough healing of body, of mind, and of spirit. God, through your healing, may we be healed, and through your help, may we be saved. Thus we shall glory in you. Blessed be Adonai by day, blessed be Adonai by night. Blessed be Adonai when we lie down, blessed be Adonai when we rise up. Into your hand I entrust my spirit. You have redeemed me, Adonai, God of truth. God, in our hearts, we name those who are facing illness and pain. Our community thinks of Zalman Bandina, Gabby Kraft Buckman, Susan Klein, Summer Curter, Susan Robb, Linda Rabino, Arlene Furman, David Bregman, Neil Silverman, Linda Fleischer, Bernie Weinstein, Larry Maslow, Mason Rockmore, Martin Ostroff, Don Hirsch, Pearl Weitzman, Aaron Taylor, Rochelle Spurgel, Martin Spurgel, Mike Blumenfeld, Samsai Billamy, Clive Brown, Marcia Brown, Marissa Fisher, Perry Shellman, Susan Schneider, Kathleen Murphy, Sharon Neese, Rabbi Rob Nessenchuk, Emily Tucker, Andy Socortis Diori, Barry Sakowitz, Nicasio Gritana, Artie Lerner, Stacy Whitfield, Nate Maslow, Shirley Rosenberg, and Rosalie Rapfogel. We also add to the names Erica Schwartz and Ellen Sabin, Ophelia Elosia Ada, Phyllis Sherwin, Dan Riley, Claude Blyce, Jane Moravitz, Bill Berger, Bruce Sakhanoff, Alan Glass, Bernie Talpin, Rabbi Rob Nessenchuk, Sean Gilly, Allison Tischler, and David Blaustein, Yehudi Sabat-Leah, Stephen Wasser, Steve and Jackie Rose wish good health to Bob Morgan, Cliff Boatman for healing. Give them renewed comfort and courage, strength in their time, the healing powers you have placed within us all. Guide the hands and hearts of those who are entrusted with their care. May this knowledge of your love and ours give added hope to them and to their families. May they find even greater strength because our prayers are linked to theirs. And together we say, Amen. At this time in our service, we now turn to the words of Kiddush, sanctifying this sweetness of this Shabbat. I invite Cantor Novik to share the words of Kiddush with us. I invite all of you to rise.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'ahava uvratzon, Inchilanu zikaron lema'aseh bereshit ki hu yom techila lemikrei kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim Kivanu Bacharta Beotanu Hidashta Mikol Ha'amim Veshabbat Kodshecha Me'ahava Uvratzon Inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
Please be seated. I asked the Yakovitzes if they can stop sharing their screens for just a moment as I share some remarks with our community tonight. I always like to see the faces that are with us. Tonight, I want to reflect on the transition of leadership, and no, not the ones that have taken place at our congregation over the past few weeks. Instead, I want to look at the transition of leadership that we read about in this week's Torah portion, Pinchas. God tells Moses that he will die and be unable to lead the Israel people into the promised land, and that this necessitates the appointment of a new leader. Moses then requests that a new and qualified leader be appointed, and God chooses Joshua to lead the Israelites. Why Joshua? I'm sure Moses was probably pretty disappointed with God's decision. Moses has two sons, Gershom and Eliezer. And as a parent, I'm sure that he was hoping that one of them would be chosen to carry out his legacy. In Midrash Bamidbar Rabbah, we read that Moses had his own sons in mind, but God rejected this request, as God said to him, "Your son sat around and did not engage in Torah." That is a hint at why Joshua was chosen to be the next leader. He was wise, he understood the commandments, and he was engaged in learning. We're also given another clue in this week's Torah portion, as Joshua is described as an Ish Asher Ruach Bo, translated traditionally as Joshua was an inspired man. According to traditional commentators, Joshua was an Ish Asher Ruach Bo because he had the spirit, the Ruach of God within him. Moses spoke to the Eternal, saying, "Let the Eternal One, source of breath, spirit of all flesh, appoint someone over the community. If the Eternal is the God of all the spirits of all the flesh, then Joshua has been divinely ordained for leadership." Beyond Joshua's engagement in Torah and the Spirit of God within him, Joshua was an inspired leader because he had the ability to think differently, speak up, and offer dissenting opinions. Some weeks back in our Torah cycle, we read about Joshua and Caleb's expedition to scout the land. The other 10 scouts said that the Israelites should not settle. But Joshua and Caleb believed differently. Joshua stood up, spoke out, and challenged conventional thinking. To me, this is how an inspired leader acts. And for many of you, you shared similar ways, including inspired listening, being passionate, making sure there are working for the common good, honest. And this past week, we saw an example of inspired leadership. David Edelman, chair of Philadelphia's Holocaust Memorial Plaza, and incoming chair of the Jewish Federation of Greater Philadelphia. He confronted Deshaun Jackson, a wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, for his vile and anti-Semitic social media post. Jackson shared a conspiracy-laced quote purported to be from Adolf Hitler, the purpose of which is to convey that Hitler was actually an anti-racist and that Jews secretly control the world. The Instagram post played into classic rhetoric and stereotypes that oppress Jews today and have oppressed us for centuries. Recently, when celebrities, athletes, or even companies make anti-Semitic or racist comments, there's a phenomenon of cancel culture, a form of boycott in which an individual who has acted or spoken in a questionable or controversial manner is boycotted. While Edelman strongly condemned Jackson, he also reached out to develop a relationship with him. Edelman now has plans to take Jackson on a tour of the Holocaust Memorial and asked Jackson to take him to the African American Museum in Philadelphia, so both men can learn from one another. Edelman had chosen engagement over straight condemnation. Edelman remarked that if all we do is just blank people out every time they say or do something that's offensive, how will anyone learn anything? That's a bold move, especially in these fractured times. The easiest thing would have been to issue a statement calling Jackson an anti-Semite and demanding that the Eagles fire him. But Edelman knows that distinction between sound bites and actually making a difference. The harder thing is finding the teachable moment. I do wish that more athletes spoke up against Jackson's anti-Semitic social media posts. And at times, there does seem like a double standard that the accusations of anti-Semitism are not taken as seriously as anti-Black racism. We have spoken up for Black Lives Matter, and while many have decried anti-Semitism, I do wish those voices were louder. Edelman's leadership has inspired others to not just cancel Jackson out, and is an example for us too. New England Patriots Julian Edelman followed Edelman's lead and spoke to Jackson, saying, "There's no room for anti-Semitism in this world. Even though we're talking about anti-Semitism, I don't want to distract from how important the Black Lives Matter movement is and how we need to stay behind it. I think the Black and Jewish communities have a lot of similarities. One unfortunate similarity is that they are both attacked by the ignorant and the hateful. It's really hard to see the challenges a community can face when you're not part of it. So what we need to do is we need to listen, we need to learn, we need to act. We need to have those uncomfortable conversations if we're going to have real change. So to that end, Deshaun, let's do a deal. How about we go to DC and I'll take you to the Holocaust Museum, and then you take me to the Museum of African American History and Culture. And then afterwards, we'll grab some burgers and we'll have those uncomfortable conversations. The world needs a little more love, compassion, and empathy. Being an inspired leader means not canceling someone out, but instead speaking out, standing up, and engaging in those uncomfortable conversations. Like Joshua, Edelman, and Edelman, we can be Ish Asher Ruach Bo, inspired leaders. We continue our service with the recitation of Eleno. I invite you to rise, page 586.
Thank you, Rabbi Prosnett. Aleinu l'shabech l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשינו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Please be seated, page 591. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Page 594. It's a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream to be and owe to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me. Your laugh once lifted me. Your word was a gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love. A holy thing to love what death has touched. As we turn to the words of Mourner's Kaddish, we recall the loved ones who have died in the last 30 days in our community.
Yeah. Maybe 2,100.
Okay, good. So then you got to put aside.
Rosalind Samuels, the mother of Barbara Weinberg. Judith Marks, grandmother of Cantor Michelle Rubel. Maury Acker, companion of Carol Cohen. Stephen Kamen, father of Jared. Harold Krefsky, father of Philip Krefsky. We also remember the yahrzeit, the anniversary of our loved one's death. Robert Ablove, Margot Apt, Suzanne Barbie, Bernice Baroness, Mark Beckelman, Morris Bernstein, Gloria Black, Ruth Bluestone, Abe Boatman, Louis J. Bauer, Dorothy Burke, Anna Cohen, Lester Fenichel, Eli Fishman, Kenneth Freeman, David Friedman, Seaman Gilbach, Seymour Hauptman, Archie Holland, Maxine Holtzman, Emma Horowitz, Goodwin Horowitz, Sarah Horowitz, Dennis Hyman, Evelyn Kogan, Albert Costa, Bella Lederman, Clara Lathbaum, Sally Lightber, Sol Levine, Gertrude Linder, Max Linder, Viola Lowenstein, Sophie Markowitz, Mortimer Mass, Dorothy Meschel, Frank Moser, Adele Mushnick, Ida Cohen-Nivel, John Ricca, Eleanor Richmond, Ida Sarah Rose, Marjorie Rose, Jerome Rosenblum, Harvey Rossenow, Dana Sandler, Harry Schwartz, Lester Sherman, Ruben Silman, Marla Simon, Hyman Sklar, Morris Solomon, Saul Strauss, Morris Thau, Elliot Trayman, Bernard Wald, Saul Warner, Henry Weiss, Max Zunk, Estelle Zweigenbaum. We also remember Muriel Langford, Samantha Brafman, Edith Lilly, and Sarah Sarajan. And we recall loved ones who have died but not yet been buried. Jeffrey Carlin, brother of Peter, Robert Itzkin, father of Marla, and Stephanie Popper. Tonight, we are going to try something different. If you are mourning, I invite you to unmute yourself right now, and we can share these words of Mourner's Kaddish together, found on page 598. I invite you to rise. Please join with me. Yikadal
Rama, Yalma Divra, Kibusay, Yamli, Zed, Yakon, Balav Isman Kari
Yimru, Amen. Rabba Mibarach,
Yisbarak, Vishtabak, Vishlamar, Vishman, Vishnase. Yisar, Visalev, Visalal, Shmeir, Kushak, Rechu. Ushbechasa, Venechamasa, Tamiran, Bialma, Vimru, Amen. Yeshlam, Rabba, Min, Shemaya. Elenu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
Elenu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and all of Israel, to which together we say, Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated.
Hope we get to meet you once in a while.
A couple of quick announcements before we share our closing song this evening. First, a special thank you to Cantor Ott for bringing her voice and her ruach to our community. We are so glad that we can have you a part of our wonderful Temple Emanu-El family this coming year. I know that you've already started to teach our B'nai Mitzvah students, and we're excited for those coming up in the fall. A couple of upcoming events as well. On Monday night, we have our last roundtable conversation for the High Holidays. This is geared towards adults with religious school age children. It's an opportunity to share thoughts, what you need this high holiday experience. We hope that as many of you have joined us already for those. If you have any other feedback, please feel free to email any of the clergy as we begin to plan our high holiday programming and our services. We will be sending more information out in the beginning of August about high holidays, a little later than usual. Of course, we have I have a guest coming right now. We have a couple of Bible class starts Tuesday. Rabbi Appel will be teaching. We hope that you, as backup in the summer, we'll have the next about 6 Tuesdays, we'll be having Bible class. We hope you join us. Starts at 9:45. Schmoozing begins at 9:30. On Wednesday, the Westfield Clergy Association is gathering together virtually for teaching of the Psalms. Each clergy member will be teaching a psalm for about 3 to 5 minutes. During this difficult times, we look at psalms for comfort, and so we'll be looking at those. And hopefully, we'll be outside for Shabbat services next Friday at 6 o'clock. If not, we will be in virtual again, but more information, check our e-blast for that. Thank you again for joining us for Shabbat. Thank you, Rabbi Appel, Cantor Novik, and a special thank you to Gail and Joel Yakovitz for turning our pages this evening. Our closing song is Adon Olam.
And Kelohenu.
Hey, Kelohenu. Well, oh, that was pretty close. Please join me.
There you go. Ein Kelohenu, ein Kadonenu, ein Kemalkenu, ein Kemoshi.
Look how big she's got.
Elohenu.
Zoe's got. I saw her. Look at her.
Adonenu,
It's so big.
Kemalkenu, Kemoshienu.
So cute.
Elohenu, no del Adonenu, no del Emalkenu, no del Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
You all.